Hello, 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 everyone. My name is Dani Lalonders. I am the coolest cat, the coolest MILF in training on the block, and I'm going to be giving you guys a talk about diversifying your media. Um, I think diversifying your media is super duper important because I honestly think that we have moved past the need for all white cast. And personally, I just think that there's just so many people in this world and we have to show them off to the world in our media. Our media reflects who we see in life, and last time I checked, I don't see a bunch of white friends, like white able-bodied cis heterosexual, possibly one gay person or possibly one bisexual person. That's not my friend group. My friend group is a bunch of people, like everyone. I'm friends with everyone, and I would like to see that in my media that I consume. So I will be teaching you guys how to do that. A bit about myself. My name is Lalonders, like I said. Uh, I'm using captions, and these captions are not accurate. I am so sorry. That is just kind of just the way I speak, and it's very hard for me to use caption services like this because they don't really pick up on accents that well. So I will try my best to speak as clearly as I can. Um, also, excuse the mouth noises. I don't have a pop filter. I kind of have a little bit of a lisp, but we're gonna keep going. It's fine. About myself, my name is Daniel Launders. I am the head developer of Validate Game. You can find me at Danulmao on Twitter, or also follow my game. Please follow my game. We're almost at 10,000 followers. That's so crazy to me. But yes, a little bit about myself. Like I said, I'm the head developer of Validate. I came up with Validate in July, summer ish of 2019. We decided to become public and, open in February of 2020, which means it's almost our anniversary, y'all. Oh my god, it's so exciting. I don't, I don't know, like, it's just like, it's so crazy because, like, I just remember last year, I was just like, wow, Validate is just so big. And, like, fast forward, it's almost a year since, like, we launched, like, to the public. And it's so crazy because I'm just like, we've grown so much in a year. Like, I'm so grateful and I'm so, like, relieved about how great Validate is and how much people really like what we're doing. So, like I said, I'm the head developer of Validate. Validate's my game. You guys have probably heard of it. If you're a part of Black Card members, you've definitely heard of it. You've definitely seen us promote it in the server, on your Twitter as well. Thank you for doing that. But yes, Validate, as you can see, this is the cover art of our game, or the current cover art. That's a wink wink. The current cover art of our game. Basically, we decided that we want to show all of our characters on for the cover art of our game, because that is what people are seeing. That is what people are they're going to see. That's like the first thing they see. Excuse me, I will be drinking water because this is an hour and a half talk and I will not die. Anyways, yeah, this is what people see. This is the first thing people see when they are buying your game or when they're looking at your work. I think that having a very strong and very cohesive logo and brand recognition is like super important. I will be going into that a little more later. But as you can see from left to right, we have Malik, who is black. He is Ghanaian. Rocky, who is Chinese and black. Yolanda, who is Korean and black. And Hadi, who is South African black. And Katari Biggs, who is black. Adhiri, who is Samoan, and then we have Anaya, who is Pakistani. I We just decided that we just want to put our, like, this is not all of our characters. As you know, we have 13 characters. Most of them people of color, plus the Italian. We love him so much, but we were bullied into putting him in the game, so here he is. Basically, yeah, we wanted to make sure that, like, we have a strong front. We have characters with different sprites. As you can see, Malik is kind of, he has his hand in his hair. He's kind of like, oh darn. Rocky looking a little smirk. Yolanda is just like, like, she's laughing. And Hardy is looking a little flirty, as she always is. Big's just like, Ihiri, you know, his emo self, and Anaya, finger guns. We wanted to like have like an array of emotions with when it comes to our characters, because like I said, this is the first thing people are seeing. This is the first thing most people will come across when they Google your game or your media or your work. And by doing this, we decided that like it was to be a good thing, because you can see all of our characters in different array of emotions, which is what Validate is. Like, it's a different array of emotions from start to finish. If you played our demo, you probably know what I'm talking about. Next slide. So, diversity. What is it? What does it mean to be diverse in like? What does that mean? Like, diversify media. What does that mean, basically? Um, I will give you a simple explanation, a simple definition. To diversify media just means not having a standard all white characters. That's pretty much it. And not having a standard all white characters and then your token character of color. That is also not diversity. I want everyone to remember that that is not diversity. That is not diversity. That is not diversity. I've said that like 4 times. I'll say it other times. That is not diversity. I need everyone to know that having one character of color is not diversity. That is not diversity. That is not diversity. I'm very tired of when people are just like, oh, our show is so diverse, and then you have one character of color who's like ambiguously brown. And there's nothing wrong with like ambiguously brown people, obviously. That is not what I'm saying. But it is wrong when it's in media, because like people tend to do ambiguously brown when they don't want to give their character a certain race, but they want them to not be white. If that makes sense. I hope that's making sense. So like for example, um, a good example of this that I can tell y'all is She-Ra. I personally do not like She-Ra. It's not for me. It's not like, I mean, there's She-Ra, obviously problematic. Whatever. I don't care. I as a creator, I don't really like trashing on other creators, especially like, smaller creators, even though She-Ra's kind of mainstream now, but I digress. It's just not for me, personally, but I like a good example of what I was just speaking of is like Katara. I think it's Katara, how she is brown skin, and like she was not given a race until I think later on, is from what I'm gathering. Um like that's not really okay. I think that like if you're going to give your character of color a race, you need to give them a race, and not like say like, oh, this character is brown, so they can either be black, or they can be Latin, or they can be Middle Eastern, or like, like that's not okay. Like, you have to give them a race. You have to be like, hey, this person is from Thailand, or this person is from India, and like, and then like, do your research on that. But I will get more into that later. I'm kind of rambling. Anyways, to go back to our current slide, it means to diversify media means to have actual diversity in your characters, in the people who are working on your products, your media, the people who are I guess you can't really control the people who are consuming your media, but like if you make it so, excuse me, sorry, if you make it so that like it is there, to put it frank, there are some things that are meant for white people. An example of that, The Office. Very much white humor. The people of color in the show are, sorry, I just want to turn my light down. It's a little blinding. The people of color in the show are often, used for their race, like the puns of Stanley, used for their race. Midney, that's not her name. I always forget her name. But she was obsessed with Ryan. They use her for her race. They've made a lot of like, oh, is it because I'm black jokes with Stanley, and Daryl as well. Like, that is a show that is for white people. Another example of a media created for white people would be Friends. Friends has all white cast. There's probably been like 10 episodes out of like the 5,000 cajillion they have with like people of color, like all white cast. It is made for white people. To go back to what I was saying, create media that is not in the lens of a white person, if that makes any sense. Like, you have to narrow, I mean, you have to expand. I said narrow as I was going this way. You have to expand your eyes. You have to expand your knowledge of people who are not you. And I will go more into that later. So to finally go to this slide, what does it mean to diversify media? To start off, let's think of some popular animated works. I just chose these three because these were the most popular shows of last year. 2020 was, not really that big for a lot of releases, but like there were a few. She-Ra was a very big one. I remember when the last episode of like the last season of She-Ra aired on Netflix, and all my mutuals were crying, and I'm just like, y'all are having fun, so I'm gonna support you. Owl House. I'm not super big into that, but like I have seen an episode of each of these shows, is what I should say. I'm not super big into it, but like it looked like a very cute show. And Close Enough, which is made by the same people who made the regular show. Basically, it's just like, kind of continuation of like the themes of the regular show, adulthood, and like going through it. So basically, I wanted to go back to what I originally said in the previous slide. How you present your media is how people will perceive it. So that being said, when the presentation, as in like a fit, like an image, like the image that people will see is how people will perceive it. So for She-Ra, as we are looking at this cover, what do we see? We see Adora, I think that's her name, in the top. She is the main character. She is that bitch. She's just like right there. She got her sword. Good for the lesbians. And then you have the supporting characters all at the bottom. And most of the supporting characters are people of color. I understand that they are supporting characters, but there is a message you put out when you put people of color as supporting characters and people of color underneath the white character who is on top. I will explain that later. Close Enough. If it's a little bit hard to see, but if you go to the full image, you can see there are people of color in the same situation as the She-Ra poster. They're all at the bottom, and then the three main characters are up there. If you look to the left of the guy, there's a black man, but like I said, he's not censored, and he's not entirely on the frame. So it's like he's kind of just like on the side. And on the right side, it looks like an Asian, an East or Southeast Asian character. Like I said, it's not centered, so they are not the focus. With Owl House, however, you have that one character who's not a human, and then you have the main character who is human and she's brown. I'm pretty sure she's Latina. I need to, like, I'm not 100% sure about that, but I'm pretty sure like she's Latina from everything I've gathered about it so far. And like that is what you should do. Put your main character who is a person of color in the front. Make people know that you have these characters in your show, and not only do you have these characters in your show or in your media, in your book, in your comic book, but make sure that people know that this character has importance to not only the plot, not only yourself, but to the media itself. Next slide. Ooh, now we're talking about video games. Last year was a really interesting year for video games. We actually had a lot come out, even though we were in the middle of a global pandemic. Being in a global a Pennsylvania, it sucks. It really does suck, and it's very hard, just like as a person who just had to live through that. Like, COVID sucks, and being in America, while people aren't taking this seriously, it sucks even more. And just that is just my little COVID rant. I think we can all agree that like COVID-19 Not good vibes. Anyways, back to diversifying media. I still can't believe The Last of Us Part 2 came out last year. Oh my god, last year was so long. Sorry, that's just a little side tangent. But yeah, these are the three I would say three of the most popular games, but three popular games that came out last year. Like I said, The Last of Us Part 2, Cyberpunk 2077, and Control Ultimate Edition. I will try to not be as super biased. I obviously have made it very clear that I'm not a fan of Cyberpunk, and I'm kind of a fan of The Last of Us Part Two. I have opinions about that franchise. And Control Ultimate Edition, not super big of a fan of that kind of game, but we are not here to talk about my opinions of these games. We are here to talk about the cover art of them. So, as you can see, The Last of Us Part 2, with Eli, she is in the center, she is the main character. However, she is not the only main character in The Last of Us Part 2. From my memories, her right hand is an Asian man. And also there's multiple people of colors who are constantly around Eli, or Ellie, whatever, constantly around her. But as a franchise, they decided that they wanted to have Eli be the center of their advertising because they want everyone to know that she is the main character. She is who you'll be playing as. It is kind of crazy that they chose just to have her, even though she would be nowhere without the people around her. But I digress. The Last of Us is a very big franchise, and like I don't think they would sell any less copies if they put people of color on their cover art, but I digress. Cyberpunk. Um, sorry, I didn't mean to laugh. Aside from the very obvious issues with the franchise, they still decided to have a white man with a gun in his hand for the cover art of and the mascot of the game. I'm not sure why they did that. Personally, I don't understand that choice, especially with all the controversy that's been coming out and everything, and just crunch time and general displacement and distrust in the workplace and whatever. Yeah, this is not really a good marketing move. Strategically, it's not really the best move, but it is what it is. Whatever. Control Ultimate Edition. I don't have much knowledge of this game. This game looks really cool though, but it's not really my type of game. But like I said, I I just wonder. I was as I was doing my research, I was just kind of wondering as what if they decided that maybe it wouldn't be a white woman as the face of this. What if it was a black woman? Would the game still sell as much? What if it was um, a Middle Eastern woman? Would the game sell as much? These are questions that a lot of these companies don't think of and they don't think of. So when I say they think of but they don't think of is that they only think of adding people of color as an afterthought and never when they're planning to do these things. Because as an afterthought is typically when people are just like, hey, this game is really white, or hey, this is what they did in this game is kind of racist, and then they're just like, wow, we could have prevented this. And the reason why that happens a lot of times is because most of the people who are making these games are white people, white men in particular. The game industry is very white, very very white. I don't I'm just being very honest. I'm not saying that it's the worst thing in the world, even though at times it is a little jarring. But the gaming industry is very white. It is very white centered, white focused. They're still busting out games with white men as the main character, even though that's all gaming has been since the beginning of gaming. And slowly and surely, people of color are able to get in these positions to make these decisions where like the main characters are not white men or white women, but we still have some work to do. And that is just all I'm going to say about that. So, what are some common themes among the media shown? Like I said, the characters of color are often not shown in cover art, and if they are, they're not centered. Like I said, centering is very important. I'm not like super into art and all that theory stuff because I think art school is a scam, and the art classes I've taken in academia also a scam. So I there's nothing really to gain from that. So like I was saying, it's just like I know that one of the things that I learned in all my art classes is that the center of your piece is the most important part of your piece. So that being said, it's just the most important part is what you have centered and what you have as the focus of your media, like how you present your media. And basically, I just personally, I just think that it's time for people of color to be the center of media. Next slide. Personally, oh, here's a quote by me. If I had $1 million, I would simply create media with no white people. And I did that. And then y'all gave me a lot of money. So I was just like, alright, I'll put an Italian there. Because Italian people are the closest to people of color. That is probably not true. And I'll probably piss some people off by saying that. But c'est la vie. Ooh, I just hit my mic. So, as we are progressing through and going through this, I just want to talk about questions to ask yourself as you're creating media and questions I ask myself as I am creating media. When I was creating for Validate, every character of Validate is an OC of mine. Is an OC that I kind of created, or majority of them. Some of them are Havens. Shout out to Haven Vintage Foods. That is my dog right there. He is wonderful. Go follow him. Awesome. Anyways, but most of the characters are like actual characters that I created, like my OCs. So when I was creating each character, I kind of just wanted to create a character who I've never seen in media before. I wanted to create a character who I just was just like, like, have I ever seen an Ecuadorian character? Have I ever seen a Middle Eastern lesbian? Have I ever seen a dark skinned Blasian? Like those are some people, like some characters who I rarely see in media, and if we do see them in media, they're often side characters or they're often racist stereotypes. Like I was just really tired of doing that. So when I was going through and designing each character, I was doing intense research of the characters' backgrounds. I was doing research about Korea. I was doing research about France. I was doing research about Qatar. I was doing research about South Africa. I was just doing research about pretty much like every character because I wanted to put a lot of time and effort into these characters that I was designing. I just felt like it was just really important for me to do that because I will want someone to do that with my ethnicity. I am Nigerian. I would, if I ever saw a Nigerian character in media, I wouldn't want to know what tribe are they from. I would want to know, like, what their parents are like. I would want to know, like, are they religious or, like, what do they believe in? Like, that is information that I would like to know if I saw myself represented in media. So I was just like, I want to give other people that same kind of satisfaction, that same kind of you know, relief that the person that is behind this actually cares about them and their culture and their country and everything about that. I try to be as authentic as possible with these characters because I just feel like when you put care into something, it shows. I want people to feel like these characters are real people. And I think that's the issue with a lot of media nowadays, that characters don't feel like real people anymore. They just feel like fictional characters. And there's something wrong with characters feeling like fictional characters because in some cases, it is great that that character is a fictional character and not a real life. Like, can you imagine like a Orochimaru from Naruto is a real person? That would be terrifying. I would just be like, y'all, there's like giant snakes outside. Like, what's going on with that? Like, what's that? um, but like, this is Validate is a realistic media. It is something I created because I was just like, I am a young single-ish person in my 20s, um and I am a person of color, and I'm just like, I just go through and I'm just like, and every time I see a person of color, a woman of color, or someone who I am just projecting non-binariness onto, um in media, they're often teenagers. They're either teenagers or they're either like much older than me. And I'm just like, why aren't we making media with like 20-year-olds? Like, why the hell do we keep making media about teenagers? Let it go. High school was not the best years of your life. Let that go. If you say high school is the best years of your life, you peaked in high school, and I think that's something you have to deal with your therapist. I am so sick and tired of people making media about kids. No more. I think we've had enough of that. I personally think that it's time for 20-year-olds to get a shine when it comes to creating media. That is just my little rant. If you're creating media with kids, go crazy. I'm not judging you, but like, it's just like, it's not really my cup of tea. Okay. Anyways, when you're creating media, you have to think to yourself, what is this media going to be about? What do I want to put out in the world? What message do I want people to know? So when I was creating Validate, I was just like, I want people to know that dating in your 20s as a person of color is the hardest thing ever. When it comes to desirability politics, when it comes to location, when it comes to, hey, I like you, but like, do your parents want me dead? Or like, oh, hey, I like you, but like, I don't know if I'm ready to date outside my race yet. Like, those kind of conversations that are rarely had in media, um, but are had on Twitter or had on like Facebook or like Tumblr, like conversations that typically are not had. I wanted to have those conversations. I wanted to have an open dialogue about how hard it is to date in your 20s as a person of color, and especially as like an LGBT person of color, because that just adds a whole other layer to it. Because like, can you imagine like, oh, like for example, like I'm a non-binary, a bisexual non-binary woman. Number of times that like I've like approached people and be like, oh, and they're like, oh, would you be down for this threesome? And I'm just like, huh? A what? A who? Like, no, no, that's gross. Um, so I wanted to make realistic media about that. I wanted to have those kind of experience. Like that might have been a spoiler for Validate Ralph, but whatever. Like, I just wanted to do that. So like I said, the first step to do is what message you want to put out into the world. The second step is, how do you want to put out this message? What form of media do you think will be the best way to put out this message? Can it be making a comic, like a web comic, or a video game, podcast, like a fictional podcast, art, animation, movies, television? Possibilities are endless. You can even make a puzzle. No one's gonna stop you. Um, and think about if your media would really be good for in like the format that you choose. So basically validate. I'm just gonna go back to validate because that's just an easy example, and also validate layout kind of have to. um, so with validate, it's basically validate would be a very good comic as well. Um, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Validate will be a very good comic because the format that we have in our game would easily transfer well into a comic. But Validate will not be a good book. You like, does that make sense? Validate is a very visual media. So like the visuals and the faces of our characters really makes it. So like if you could not see these faces, if you could not see these expressions of our characters, it would not translate as well. So, like, these are questions that you have to think about when you're getting into what media, like, what source of media will be best for what you want to do. The third thing you have to think about is who are your characters? What do these characters do? What is the goal of these characters? What is the goal of each individual character that you want to achieve? So, for example, and I keep going back to validate. This is validate counts are probably 17, whatever. Um, so I am the writer of Malik, and I'm also the writer of of Yolanda. And basically, with Malik, I wanted him to learn from his mistakes, learn that the world doesn't revolve around him as a Sagittarius man. The world is as a sorry. As a light skinned Sagittarius man. The world doesn't revolve around him. He has to actually have compassion for other people. And then for Yolanda, this is a little bit of a spoiler, but it's not really that big of a spoiler. But for Yolanda, she wants to learn how to stand up for herself and be more confident. Um, so that is the end goal story I want to teach my audience as I progress through my story. What is the end goal of your characters? Validate is a very linear story somewhat. It goes from 2019 to the end of 2020 with no panty, because I don't think that there's a need for pandemic related media because that is dumb. We are already living in it. I don't want to see that. Anyways, I digress. um so to go back to what I was saying, what is the goal that you want to achieve when it comes to your character? What is the goal that you want to achieve telling your story? What is the story that you want to tell? What is the story that you want the world to know? And has this story been told before? And how has this story been told before? Because I think that the hang up that a lot of people get into is that they think of this awesome idea. They think of this like, oh, I'm gonna create a school of wizards and like witches, and I'm going to have them fight, and they're like, oh wait, that's Harry Potter. Like, you can do that. You can create your school of witches and your school of wizard media, but you can make it unique so it's nothing like Harry Potter. It's absolutely nothing like Harry Potter. I can easily create something that is 10 times better than Harry Potter just because I can do that. And you can do that too. Just because something already exists in the world does not mean you can't go in and make it better. Like Twilight. I love Twilight. I watched all the Twilight movies a couple months ago. Great media. I think the concept of werewolves and vampires is very fucking funny. And very great. And it's really sad that they don't make vampire media anymore because vampire media is awesome. They just bring it back. Anyways, if I wanted to create media about vampires and werewolves and the tensions between them, I could just do that. I can, but like, it doesn't have to be in the same situation. It can be like oh, I'm a vampire and I'm living my everyday life, and people don't know I'm a vampire. And I can just live my life, but I had to be aware of the werewolves who might catch me and try to kill me. Like stuff like that. Like I can be a vampire, I can have an office job, I can do karaoke. That is literally the plot of Graciado. Whatever. But like yeah, I can just do that. Um you can have these concepts and just put them in different places. It doesn't have to be in the same thing. You can even do like if I let's go back to my Harry Potter example, it could be like wizards and witches in a school, but it's 3027. It's cyberpunk. Like you can do that. You can just do anything you want. And I need people to stop getting hung up on, hey, this thing already exists and I can't do this. Yes, you can. You can do anything you put your mind to. And I need people to remember that. The only person who is stopping you from doing these things is yourself. The only person who is stopping you from doing these things is yourself. Once you get over that barrier, you are unstoppable. No one touching you. And I think that's just like a really important life lesson that if you take anything out of this talk, just take that out of this talk. No one is stopping you. No one is checking for you except for yourself. So to go back to my talk, because I like to ramble. um, so to go back to like what I was saying, these characters that you have, these characters that you created that will help you advance in your plot or advance in your story, are these characters of color? Are these characters of color made with care? Who are these characters of color? What do they do for a living? What are their jobs? Where are they from? What language do they speak? Are they evil? Are they a witch? A wizard? Like what about them makes them a character? Now, when I say that, and when I say are they evil, what what language they speak, where they from, these are things that people typically tend to look over when they're creating characters of color because they don't think that deeply about them. So example is oh, a good one is Overwatch. Overwatch does this a lot. So when they are creating their characters of color, like their new characters, they kind of just, they did this with Lucio. So they kind of just like gave him like a set, like a country that he's from. And then they gave him a backstory that didn't really make sense because it doesn't really reflect the country that he's from. Like, it doesn't really make sense that he's from Brazil, but he's playing hockey, like ice hockey. Like that doesn't make sense. They didn't. I What I'm assuming is that they didn't want to give him a. They didn't want to make his thing football because they didn't want to seem stereotypical, but it would have made sense if they did that because you can build on that. Like you can make sure that it's not a stereotype because if you put care into your research of Brazilian culture, especially Afro-Brazilian culture, with football, and the culture around it and everything around it, it wouldn't come off as a stereotype because it shows that you care. You're putting stuff out to this world to show that you actually care about your character, right? Like, does that make sense? Cause I feel like a lot of people, like the hang up a lot of people do is that they're like, hey, all right, I have this Indian character, and he's really into tech, and and I feel like it's like a stereotype, and I'm just like, it could be if you execute it the wrong way, but you could also use it to your advantage. Like, why is he into tech? What's brought him up to him loving tech? You could, like, so for example, like, you can be like, Oh, when he was younger, he had a second grade teacher who always had these really cool gadgets and would always bring them to school, and after school he would stay with his teacher and learn about these gadgets and make gadgets of its own, and ever since then he's loved tech. Like, you understand what I mean? There's a reason why he loves tech. It's not like, oh, he loves tech because he's Indian. All Indians love tech. Like, that's racist. You can't do that. You can't say that. Like, you have to have an actual reason. You have to give reasons behind why your person of color character does these kind of things. And that is something I've learned as I do research outside my race. As you can see, I'm black. um, I've also said before, I'm Nigerian. I am writing Malik, who is Ghanaian. Sorry, I'm saying a lot. My bad. And I'm writing Yolanda, who is black French and Korean. Obviously, I'm not Korean. Obviously, I'm not Ghanaian or French. As far as I know, I do my research. I've asked my Ghanaian friends about their culture, how things are going, like their upbringing, their holidays, their family traditions. I've asked my friends who are Korean about their family traditions. I've asked my French friends about their family traditions, like their background. I've also done research of my own. I've watched videos, like BuzzFeed videos about like from actual French people, actual like Koreans, like actual like mixed people, like Blasians. I've done all my research. I've done as much research as I can to make sure my characters are as authentic as possible. And even then, I still might fall short because you can tell a story from a different perspective as well as you can try to, but at the end of the day, you might miss something. And that's okay because you're not perfect. You're not like a perfect writer. But if you are, you have to make sure that you are checking in with these people who hold these identities before you release it to the world. And I always get a proofreader, always get sensitivity readers. I think that is just so important. Everyone needs a sensitivity reader in every media they create. Because there might be some there you're just like, I don't think that's really offensive. Like, it's not really like that big of a deal to me. And then someone else be like, "Whoa, did you just say that? What is wrong with you?" Like, I am totally on that ass. Like, what is wrong with you? Like, people see and view things differently all the time. And there's just sometimes you miss things. And that's okay. No one's perfect. But as long as you are not making things with like bad intentions and you are trying your hardest, it's okay. Anyways, are your characters of color actual characters or accessories for your white characters? Like I said earlier, are they side pieces? Are they, side pieces, sidekicks? That's the word I was looking for. Sidekicks, or are they like, oh, you run into them, they help you out, and then you never see from them again? Like, that's not okay. Don't do that. And then like last thing is, what is the ratio of your white characters versus your characters of color? Like, if you have all white characters and two people of color, that's not okay. That's not okay. I don't know what else to tell you. Anyways, create with purpose. Create the stories you've always once created. Like I've said before, validate is something I've always wanted to see in media, and now that I'm doing it, it's pretty epic. About validate. Like I said, I started with a purpose. I wanted to tell stories about people of color and romantic situations. Oh my god, I forgot I put the little Malik there. I love sneaking Malik in like many places. I wanted romance. I love romance. I am a romantic. I'm a Virgo. It's kind of just in my blood. I love romance. I've always loved rom coms. Those are my favorite kind of movies and media in general. I wanted to create something funny, something romantic in the best way I could. Um, I wanted a game for people like me. I wanted people, black women in particular, to have something, because we don't get anything. We are rarely represented, and when we are the butt of jokes. It's not fun. It is not fun half of the time. So I wanted to change that personally. I wanted to be like, hey, um, black woman, I got y'all this time. But I also wanted to do it as a person of color because, like I said, there's not a lot of media for us, especially like us as in 20-year-olds, 20 something year olds, people of color. I created Validate with care. Like I said, I did research of each character before I put them out to the world. Like I've said, there I have fallen short. 13 characters, sorry, like 12 characters, because I did not create Keaton. That is not in my vocabulary. I would never create an Italian OC because I don't think Italians exist personally, but I digress. Um, 12 characters is a lot of characters. And I did research as I was creating each of them. But there are some things I still missed. There's some things that I have learned about my characters as I keep going and keep creating from my other writers, people who are working on our game, people who like have played our game, all the feedback that we've gotten, we've listened to it. We have made sure to go in and fix it. An example of that, Anoki, who's a native character. So when we first introduced Anoki, their bio said, "On God, fuck white people." It was a joke, because we just think that like people of color should be allowed to say that. I digress. It was a joke. People didn't really take it the right way, but I digress. People can't say jokes. But when we did that, Anoki kind of just became that character, was just like fuck white people, and that's all they became. And that's not all Anoki is. Anoki is a cosplayer. Anoki loves gay media like Magical Girl, Sailor Moon, art, that anime stuff that I'm not 100% familiar with. Noki loves that one. Noki's a nerd. Noki's a young 22-year-old who just lost her virginity to a man that they met at Popeyes. Like, Anoki is a character who who is more than on God, fuck white people. And we wanted to we had to go with like as like a team, and like as myself as a character designer, I had to make sure that any new Anoki thing that we put out does not have that message, because we have to make sure that people know Anoki is way more than that. They are way more than like the I don't like saying this, but this is a quote that from someone else. The angry native, they are more than that. Like they are not that. They are a person with hobbies, with feelings. Like they care about their family. They care about gotcha games. They love like care about cosplay and fashion and stuff like that. Like there's more to them. Um, so I fell short up on that front, and I still feel bad about it. But I can feel bad if me feeling bad don't do nothing if I don't change anything from that. And I'm changing that, and I'm going as we keep going and we are progressing and telling more about our characters. I am changing how people see Inoki. So, like I said, telling stories with purpose. I created Validate because I was tired of fighting for realistic media with people of color my age. Like I've said before, all the realistic media is about teenagers. I am not a teenager. I'm grown. I can drink. I can smoke weed. Like, I'm grown. I just, like, I stop with the teen media. Also, every time it's like, I just feel like the thing with teen media nowadays, and sex education does not count because that show is amazing, but a lot of teen media is created by adults for adults. Like, I don't like, none of these teenagers act like teenagers. Like, and that's the issue with Euphoria. Like, I was just in high school not that long ago, and I did not act like that. I was not popping pills like that. Like, I understand that it's a situation for some high schoolers, but Euphoria is ultra unrealistic. That is not how high school is. High school is going into class at 8 o'clock, with your bag breakfast that you got from down the hall, and then two people start fighting, and then you just watch as you eat like frosted mini wheats. Like, that's high school at 8 o'clock. Like, it's like that one TikTok audio. It's like, oh, it's 7 in the morning, and it's just people doing dumb stuff. High school is very much people doing stupid things as quickly as they can. Being in your 20s is something that's just not ever explored. Um, and I wish it was. I just wish it was. Cause like, I'm not in high school. I'm not in high school. I'm not in high school. I'm literally not in high school. I'm not in high school. So stop creating a High School Musical. High school media. This is an hour and a half talk. I'm going a little crazy. It's fine though. It's YOLO. Anyways, like, also, I was tired of begging for people to put black women in media. Overwatch has put like 4 robots and like 2 white people, and they refuse to put a black woman in their game. Um, Many other people will also do the same. Overwatch is not the only corporate for this. The purpose of Validate is to tell stories about people of color in romantic situations, focus on their feelings when it comes to other people, their struggles in their own lives, etc. Just tell realistic stories. Basically, I'm just so sick of just unrealistic stories. Not everyone's an IG model. Not everyone is an aspiring rapper, even though we have one of those. Not everyone is on a scammer life. Like, just people working everyday jobs. I wanted that. I feel like we need that. It's not boring if you make it interesting. Creative people like me. Let's go back to the cast of Validate, or what we presented. When you look at this, how many people do you see looks like you? I wanted to create something that people can be like, oh my god, is that a Samoan character? I've never seen a Samoan character in media. I wanted people to feel so overjoyed that they're seeing themselves represented in media. Every time someone's just like, I have never seen a Pakistani girl, or I've never seen a character with visible arm hair, or I've never seen um a character who just looks like me. I just feel so happy because I'm just like, this is all I wanted. I want people to feel good about Validate. I want them to be able to relate to the characters, relate to the stories that we are telling. And it just makes me so happy. Honestly, it's a great feeling. I can't really explain this in words because I'm kind of bad when it comes to sentimental stuff. But it's just like, I'm grateful. Every time y'all say it, I get really happy. And it's really wonderful. And like I said, creative care. I did extensive research for every character. From country research to holidays, last names. I made sure I knew what things meant. A lot of times people name characters things and they don't know what the names mean. That's not a really good sign. And it's just like, it's like you just show that you care. And if you like can't do research, you can just steal someone's name. They're not gonna say anything. Like, oh well, sorry, you stole my name. Oh well. It's just, oh well. They can't do anything about it. Like, you stole my name. Oh well. Can you imagine if like someone just steals your name? They're like, oh, I'm just used it for OC now. Like, Your OC, his name is Danny Lalonders. That's kind of fucked up. Statistics. Let's talk statistics, baby. This is gonna be what I've already said. This graphic is actually from our Kickstarter. If thank you to everyone who donated. Thank you. We really appreciate it. YOLO. Anyways, the game industry, like I said, very, 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 very white. Based off the 2017 developer satisfaction survey conducted by IGDA, very cool people. Shout out to them. 74 of the respondents identify as male, and 26 of the respondents identify as women, trans, or non-binary. So it's like I said, it's very, very, very male and very, very, very white. 61 of the respondents of the survey only identified as white, 18% as East or South Asian, 5% identified as Hispanic or Latino, 3% Pacific Islander, 2% as Arabian or West Asian, 2% as Aboriginal or Indigenous, and 1% as in Black or African American. Let's just let's analyze that for a second. Let's think about that one for a second. As y'all think about that one, we'll take another sip. Do y'all see how bad that is? Like, do we see the problem here? Obviously, with all surveys and like all like surveys, all statistics that you will find, there's a margin of error. They can only conduct this with a certain group of people. Surveys cost money, X, Y, and Z. But based off this, do we see an issue with what I just said? Like 1% Black or African American? 1%? 1% of me? That's messed up. That's just messed up. That's so messed up. And 61% white? That's messed up. And when we see statistics like this, and personally, when I see statistics like this, it explains everything. It explains why the game industry is the way it is. It explains why people, oh, you can see my leg. It explains why people, why games are always white-centered, why they're always written from a white audience, why it's always, why it's just like, why it's just it always has white characters, and when there are people of color, they often fall short. Like, do we see the problem here? Do we see the problem here? We can't have any change until the people who are making these games are not white men. That's just all I can say. That's just all I can say. And before, people were just like, oh, what are the people playing the games? I got some info for you. So this is based off a 2015 Pew Research study. Shout out to Pew Research. So 80% of non-Hispanic Black teenagers play video games. And then 71% of white teenagers play video games, while 69% of Hispanic teenagers play video games. People of color in the United States, majority play video games. Like, most of the people who are buying games, who are playing games, are people of color. Most of the, I think it's just like, people of color play video games. And I need people to remember that. Like, people of color play video games. We play video games. We play video games. We enjoy video games. We have a lot of fun playing video games. We spend a lot of hours into playing video games. So why do these video games never represent us? You know? Like, we are paying your bills. We are buying your games. We are talking about your games. We're loving your games. Yet these games never include us. These games never include anyone who looks like us. These games never include, like, are barely being worked on by people who look like us. So why not? Like, what's the issue in the industry? That this is not, this, it's been the same since 2001. Like, Hello, what's the issue? Is this character a racist stereotype or a well-written person of color? Barrett Wallace from Final Fantasy VII. Um, yeah, pretty big stereotype. Macho black man, not a good look, babes. Not a good look. Excuse me if I pronounce this one incorrectly, but this Jimmy from Cuphead, um, sorry, my thing is covering it. The if in his design he has teapots for legs. That's not good. It's very racist. Very, very racist. Lee Everett. So this one, you can kind of argue it is a stereotype and it isn't at the same time, because when you first meet him, he is getting arrested. He is in the back of the cop car, but he gets out. So I like him personally. So I'm gonna just look the other way with this one. I don't think so. I think this is a well written character. Our next one, Nadine Ross from the Uncharted series, a badass woman, badass as hell. Um, the only downside is that she was voiced by a white woman and not a black voice actress. But it's okay. We'll look the other way because she's not a racist stereotype. Bangalore. Bangalore? Bangalore. I don't play Apex. I don't know what Apex is. Anyways, I saw her, or I saw. I think this might be the her character. I saw her. Lost my fucking mind. I was just like, damn, that hair texture. Oh my god. I was in tears. I was in shock almost. I couldn't believe it. I was just so happy. So well written character. Next one. Miles Morales. My son. I personally will say this is a well written character. I don't think he's a stereotype. I think there's been renditions of him as a stereotype. What it depends on who is writing him. It's comics. Different people are writing comics. There's been points of time where he's been a stereotype, but in the PS5 edition of him, pretty solid. I if I do say so myself. Q&A time. So now I will be answering any questions that y'all have. And also thanks for watching. I'm just gonna leave this up as the Q&A goes. You can follow me on Twitter. If you have any other questions, you can email me at DaniLalonders@gmail.com. I just realized subtitles have not been on for this entire time. It's fine. It's fine.